Hey folks, my name's Kevin and it's time for a slightly different kind of knife nerdery. I wanted to make a quick video today that is different from most of the content that I put on this channel because it's not about a specific knife or piece of gear, but instead about the communities we form around knives and gear and how do we make them better by focusing on them being positive, supportive, and most of all inclusive spaces. Now, if you watched my intro video, you'll know that I spent the majority of my life avoiding the knife community. To a large degree, it was focused on the type of stuff that doesn't really appeal to me, but also a major part of it is that I never felt like it would be a space that I would fit in, that I would be welcomed. I never felt like it would be accepting of someone like me. But what does that mean? What is someone like me? So, I'm a baby-faced, couldn't grow a beard if my life depended on it mega nerd. I'm a urban, suburban person that uses knives and gear to fix things around my house and open packages, not go try to be Rambo. I'm not interested in the paramilitary side at all, and I'm not some rugged bushcrafter person. I'm interested in knives and gear and also largely because of their interesting mechanical nature. They're neat gadgets and tools. And so I never felt like the type of person that I am and the way that I use knives and gear would be accepted by the community. But at the end of the day, who am I? I'm still a straight white dude. And so at the end of the day, the community would always have been more accepting of someone like me than someone who just simply wasn't those things. Someone that was a person of color, or trans, or gay, or disabled, or a woman. Even just being a woman, no other modifiers. Just being a woman in this community can be so awful. I was worried that people would tease me because of who I am and how I like to use knives and tools and what interests them about me. But people wouldn't be spewing hate at me just for who I am and trying to exist in the same place as them. It's really important to think about this. The way that you make other people feel and whether or not they feel welcome and able to be themselves in this space. Because whether or not they feel welcome and able to be themselves is going to be whether or not they participate. And if you like any of the content that I produce, the videos that I make, the pictures I post, the comments I leave in groups, the general place I have in the community, if you value that at all, know that I wouldn't have been doing any of that if the community hadn't changed enough to make me feel like I was finally plausibly welcome. But the reality is there's a ton of people who have the same insight as me, the same intellect as me, the same observational ability and attention to small detail, the same experiences, the same ability to add value, and often way, way, way more of all of those things than I do. But they still don't feel welcome in this community and aren't contributing and adding value because of how badly they're treated just for being themselves here. It goes beyond just identity stuff, though. It also goes into the way that you use knives and tools and the way that the community does this awful gatekeeping about what kinds of uses are permissible. Like I said, I'm interested in knives and gear. I use knives and gear around my house to open packages and stuff, but I'm also interested in them because of their aesthetic, because of their mechanical gadgety nature. I like them as fidget toys. And I'm not someone that's out in the world trying to be a survivalist bushcrafting. This is going to be a bit of a tangent, but it's related to things I was just talking about. There's a reason why on this channel you're probably not going to hear me use the term safe queen. If somehow you've made it to my channel and don't know what that word is, then I guess welcome, because you're probably new here. But it's a word that I believe originated in the gun community. But anyway, in modern use, it refers to a piece of gear or a knife that you have that you don't actually use. One that is too pretty, too expensive, too fancy, too delicate, too anything. And as a result, you literally or metaphorically keep it in a safe rather than actually using it. And that it's used The reality is we just don't have a better term for things. So a lot of people just use it because there isn't a better term. But it's used often as a pejorative, as a way of people gatekeeping what is valid use of a knife, or a valid way to enjoy and appreciate and reason for owning a knife. People use it to say, you're not actually using your stuff right, because they're not using it the way they think is permissible, or valuable, or the correct way of using a knife and gear. And what it's doing is it's saying that the way, like, if someone says that to you, they're saying that that you bought this knife for some purpose, and that purpose isn't as valid as their purposes for buying a knife. That means that owning something because you think it's pretty, owning something because you think it's interesting, because you think it's fun to play with, owning something because you think it has a sense of value to you, or owning something because it has an emotional value to you. Anything outside of, are you using this for hard use, is somehow not valid. But there's a second side to it. Why do we call it a safe queen? Why isn't it a safe king? This is subtle, and I'm wholeheartedly confident that the vast majority of people who use this word aren't thinking about the fact that there is an inherently sexist quality to it. But the reality is the majority of people aren't thinking about how their words impact other people in the first place. We call it a safe queen because of the inherent, generationally built-in connotation that anything that is those words I described earlier, fancy, pretty, delicate, that's somehow inherently feminine. So I want to be very clear that I don't think the vast majority of people who say that word or anything, or the vast majority of people who are participating in this community, are trying to be malicious or trying to be hurtful or trying to be bad. They're not. The vast majority of people are good people. The vast majority of people just aren't thinking about how to be better, or how their term and their behavior affect other people's experience of the world. So what can you do about it? The first thing you can do is don't be a dick. Don't say things that you know are hurtful. It doesn't matter if you think it's funny, and it doesn't matter if the people around you are laughing and think it's funny too. Don't actively contribute to someone else's pain. It's that simple. The second thing you can do, because that first one really only applies to the trolls. Now, there's a ton of trolls out there, but the vast majority of people, like I said, aren't trolls. The vast majority of people are good people that aren't trying to hurt other people. They just don't realize that their behavior is hurting other people. So the second thing you can do is practice empathy. You should do this always in life, before and after you speak. Think back about how you interacted with people and what kind of the reaction they had and why it was. But before and after you speak, think about other people's perspectives. Think about what their experience is like and how you would feel if you were them receiving the same thing. And that's an important distinction. It's not just how would you act or how would you react if someone treated you the way that they're being treated. Because you're a different person than them then. It's really hard, but really important to think, why do they feel and react the way they are? Put yourself in their perspective and imagine what it would be like to actually be them and then be treated that way. The third thing that you can do is be an ally. If you're in one of these communities and you see people acting shitty to someone, speak up. It's hard and it's scary because you're making yourself vulnerable. You're now potentially directing that shitty behavior towards you. But the reality is that person who's being crapped on, they're living a way, way harder, more dangerous experience than you would ever be for just putting your neck out there and saying, hey, stop being a dick. And there's also strength in numbers. It makes such an impact on people's lives when they feel like someone hears them and is standing up for them. So if you are in one of those communities and you see this behavior, speak up. Also speak to the person. Message them directly and tell them that you support them, that you support their existence. But publicly speak up. Public speaking up makes a way bigger impact than some direct message because you're showing the community. You're leading by example. You're showing the community what good behavior is. The fourth thing that you can do is, vote with your money. At the end of the day, if you're living in the US, you're living in a capitalist society, and that means that you don't have a whole lot of recourse often other than the fact that we live in a capitalist society, and so you get to choose where your money goes. And so that means don't give your money to people who are actively bad, and do instead give your money to people who are actively good. And good and bad there do not mean people that have the same social and political values as you. That doesn't mean don't support someone that disagrees with you. What that means is don't support someone who is being actively malicious and bad in the world. I'm a liberal guy, and the vast majority of folks in the knife community are not. They're conservative, and that's fine. They're not bad people for that. I'm not a bad person for being a liberal person. The bad people are the ones who are actively trying to hurt people, or who are using their position to encourage other people to hurt people. So don't give your money to people who are jerks, and do give your money to people who are not. And it goes both ways. Just because like a maker is trans doesn't mean that you should support them because you support trans rights. People can be bad on both sides, and hatred and nastiness can't be accepted in either direction, regardless of whether or not it's in response to hatred and nastiness. But at the end of the day, support people who are just good, positive, genuine people. The next thing you can do is to seek out and participate in, and if need be, create communities that are positive spaces. Leave the groups you're in that are gross. Don't idly participate in them because you don't think you have another option. Find the ones that are good and join them. Spend your time, the same sense of spending your money in the right ways, spend your time the right ways by participating in communities that are positive places. And if you want or you feel you need to, make your own. This is where I want to plug something. So there's this really cool woman that I met. I forget where. I met her in the TRM group. By the way, that's a really positive space. TRM is one of the few communities I've found. The Three Rivers Manufacturing Facebook group is one of the few communities I've found that is just genuinely positive all the time. But I met this woman there named Mackenzie, and she's just a really cool person. But she's gay. And she was receiving so much nasty homophobia in other groups that she decided to create her own. And I so admire her I can do something about this attitude towards it. That's amazing. But she created a new group on Facebook called LGBT EDC. And it's a place that is trying, obviously from that title, to create a safe place for LGBT folks to experience EDC community. But it's more than just that, because the whole point of this is to create a positive, inclusive space regardless of who you are. So if that seems like something that'd be interesting to you, go check them out. And that doesn't mean if you're gay, go join that group. That means if you want to be able to enjoy knives and gear in a space that is explicitly around trying to be inclusive and positive and not shitting on people for who they are, go check it out. I've been loving the type of content that's in there right now, and it's just normal EDC content, except it's about a bunch of people that are really trying to be positive and supportive. This has been a long rant, but the reality is the world can be such a better place if you make other people feel like they are welcome and valid existing in it too. It's not hard. And it's also not a confusing concept. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now, and thank you for listening. If you want to talk to me more about this, by all means do. I don't think my channel is big enough that I'm going to get a whole bunch of crap about this either, but I know the internet is full of trolls, and so it's possible I might get some awful comments, and if that happens, that's fine too. At the end of the day, I hope this video at all makes you think about this stuff, your role in it, and what you can do about it. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a nice rest of your day.